Should hear me now. Autumn. Okay. Are any of those copyright strike? Can I get copyright strike from that? I mean, I know I'm not making any monetization right now, but can I still get copyright strike from that? The past two streams, I got a copyright claim for piano music. Imagine copywriting your piano music. What if I just played it and recorded it and just put it on there? Play a cover. Oh. My piano's broken. Yeah. Am I straight? Why does that matter? Does it matter if I'm straight or gay? Play cover on YouTube? What does that mean? You want the music to be louder? Like, I want my voice to be louder, but I don't want to, you know, like drown out my voice. If you know what I mean. Because the gain on my mic is very small, but the audio quality for its price is like incredible. Sorry guys, that was my mom. Alright, so today we're going to be going over just a few more multiple choice, no Khan Academy, because that's kind of boring, but I know you guys don't want, it's kind of boring to hear me like talk everything out, but you know, that's just how his AP World History is, so yeah. So today we're just going, so I have some test corrections from my last AP World History practice test, and I'm just going to be sharing that, as well as how the thinking should go. Of course, before that, let's just go watch some Highlands history. So, I understand that some people will say, "Oh, I don't know what this is."
Hey, AP World History students, I just got done with the broadcast for units 7 through 9, and if you were there at the end, you heard us talking about the thesis. Let me just clear something up. I teach, in my videos, in my class, although X, A and B, therefore Y. That's the, sort of complex thesis. Freeman and Glenkler were saying, I don't like that, I don't do that, and they do something totally different. I don't want to stress you out. So if that's the way you learned it, the point is, as you go into your essays tomorrow, just do whatever you've learned. If it's my method, it's technically John Irish's method. If it's not my method, do whatever works for you and don't freak out. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
Gotta stay tomorrow. Cool, calm, and collected.
Hey, AP World History students, I just got done with the broadcast for...
Okay, so I understand that, I think I've only reviewed the LEQ, SAQ, and MC, and a ton of MCQ, so I'm gonna start like showing videos for DBQs and how we should do them. So I feel like DBQs are supposed to be easier than LEQs since you're using documents, but it's also harder because one, there were 7 points, and two, you need to write more. So yeah.
To 1920. All right, did you see the historical thinking
I guess
skill?
I watched a bit already.
Well, hey there, and welcome back to Heinleish History. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to get a perfect score on the dreaded document-based question, or the DBQ, for AP US History, AP World History, and AP European History. And for most students, this is the most difficult thing they have to do in these courses, so if you need to go have yourself a proper cry, then pause this and go do it. Regardless, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the scoring rubric point by point and teach you how to get every dang one of those points. So if you're ready to get them brain cows milked, I'm ready. Let's get to it. Now let me just quickly mention that this video is just one part of my AP Essay Cram course, which actually goes into Europe earn the point. Plus there's video every point on the rubrics that'll show you how to earn the point and what doesn't earn the point. Plus there's videos from this guy that you won't find here on YouTube. So if you're struggling with these essays, that might be the thing to help you. Link in description below. First, let's talk about the exam itself. When you open your exam to the DBQ, you will have 60 minutes to read your documents and write your essay, and you will see a prompt followed by 7 documents. No more, no less. And just as a note, if in your classroom you're seeing DBQs with more or less than 7 documents, just know that on the official exam, you'll have exactly 7. And your job is to use evidence from those 7 documents to support an argument in response to the prompt. Okay, now let's go through the steps of what you need to do to score well on this DBQ. Step 1, read and understand the question. And it's going to be very tempting for a lot of people just to read the prompt quickly and then get right onto the documents. But don't be that guy. Stop yourself. Read it carefully. Mark up the prompt. What time period are they asking you about? Remember.
In my case, I feel like I take too much time to read the documents. Luckily, both the DBQs and the LEQs, the time for those two intertwine. So, and LEQs, I usually do very well, and I almost finish in like 30 minutes. So I guess I can use the extra time for the DBQ on the LEQ, and then just finish up the LEQ and just nail both of them. So yeah.
Remember that the 16th century, for example, equals the 1500s, so don't get confused by the century. If you do get confused by those things, then write down the dates that they're asking you about so that you don't get confused. Furthermore, what is the historical thinking skill embedded in the question? Is it asking you to compare two things or talk about change over time, etc.? You need to write this down, highlight it, bold it, get it tattooed on your forehead, because that's the kind of essay you will be required to write. If the prompt asks you to compare things, then make sure your essay is comparing things. Sometimes the historical thinking skill won't be obvious, but it is there. Sometimes it asks you a question and you can decide whether you want to use causation or change over time or comparison. It'll be up to you, but just make sure you understand what you are doing. Let me just explain by giving you an example prompt. Evaluate the extent to which the progressive movement fostered political change in the United States from 1890 to 1920. All right, did you see the historical thinking skill? This kind of essay, the one that they want you to write, is a change essay, and more specifically, to what degree was there change? Second, you need to note any categories that they're giving you. In the prompt I just showed you, note that it's asking about political change. Now, the progressive movement fostered an awful lot of social change as well, but that is not what they are asking about. They're asking about political change, so your essay should be about political change. Third, note the time period they give you. In this case, it's 1890 to 1920. Your essay needs to deal with issues from within that time period. Now, I know this probably seems intuitive for a lot of you, but remember, and I never tire of saying this, when you are under pressure, you are dumber than you think. What seems so very clear right now while you're free of the pressure will become murky and cloudy when the clock starts ticking. And as someone who has scored thousands of these essays on the national level, take it from me. I have seen beautifully written essays that don't address the topic of the prompt or write about a similar theme in a different time period, and they get little to no points for it. So read the question carefully and spend the time to do what may feel remedial for you, mark it up thoroughly, and understand it. Step 2, read through the documents relatively quickly. They suggest you take 15 minutes to read through the documents, which will leave you 45 minutes for writing. In that 15 minutes, you need to be looking at the following. First, what is the source of the document? Who is speaking and... Well, hey there, and welcome back to Heimlich History. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to get a you mark it up thoroughly and understand it. Step 2, read through the documents relatively quickly. They suggest you take 15 minutes to read through the documents, which will leave you 45 minutes for writing. In that 15 minutes, you need to be looking at the following. First, what is the source of the document? Who is speaking and to whom? Also note where in the timeline that you're writing about does this document sit, and note those things because it'll help later when it comes to sourcing, and if you don't know what that means, don't worry, I'll explain later. Second, summarize the main idea of the document with reference to the prompt. Keep in mind that they're giving you these documents as evidence because they summarize the main idea of the document with reference to the prompt. Keep in mind that they're giving you these documents as evidence because they think that these documents will help you answer the question. So the little exercise that I go through when looking at a document is this. If I only had this document, how would it answer the question? So think about that and then write it down right next to the document. Third, group your documents into 2 to 3 groups. With 7 documents, 3 groups is probably going to be the upper limit on what you can viably create. So if the prompt is asking you about the causes of imperial...
I'm guessing you're supposed to group the documents in order to be able to add a complexity and correlate each document to each other and how they connect to each other and how they all correlate to your thesis.
Realism, and you're reading through the documents and you see 3 of them mention religious reasons and 4 have to do with economic reasons, then group them like that. And I want to emphasize grouping documents into categories because of a common error I've seen when we've scored your essays nationally. A common mistake is to see a student use their documents like this. In document 1 it says, in document 2 it says, in document 3 it says, in document 4 it says, and then on and on and on. And the student just goes through all the documents in order. Now, theoretically, you could still get full points on your essay by handling the documents in that way, but let me just say that the vast majority of those essays do very poorly. When you start listing the documents in order, it's usually a signal to the reader that this person doesn't have a coherent grasp on his or her argument. But grouping the documents by category is a higher level cognitive exercise, and it shows that you've made connections between the documents that sets you on your way to a good score. Okay, step 3, get a 7. Okay, now that you've read and understood the prompt and you've analyzed and grouped your documents, it's time to start writing. And what I'd like to do now is walk through the DBQ rubric point by point and show you how to earn each one in turn. And I'll just be talking generally at this point and giving basic guidelines. First point, thesis, and you can earn 0 to 1 points for this. Now, your thesis is arguably one of the most important things you're going to do in this essay because it's going to organize and anticipate everything else you're going to.
The thesis is also going to set the stage for your evidence, which will set the stage for your analysis and reasoning, and in a way the complexity as well. So all these points are interconnected, so it could be an all or nothing DBQ.
Right. So make sure you spend your time getting the thesis right. Now, in order to earn this point, the rubric says that you must write 1 or 2 sentences which are historical.
AP history. Currently having 86%, I think. But I used to do like a lot more poorly, but like he's been giving out a lot of more free points and I've been taking the opportunity, so about 86%.
Historically defensible and establishes a line of reasoning. So you won't get the point here for merely restating the prompt. Your thesis should actually be your argument in miniature. And your thesis needs to be additionally specific, which is to say you must mention specific historical evidence in your thesis.
So there's a difference between a minimally accepted claim or a thesis and a very well accepted thesis. Minimally acceptable, it like does the absolute bare minimum. You're just going through emotions. You want it to be complex just in case you miss something on a thesis. That way you have something else, because remember the additive point system. As long as it's there, you get the point for it.
Different from your English class where they want you to be sparse in your thesis.
What microphone am I using?
And then
The
reveal
HyperX
more
Soundcast.
later. Not so here.
About
Your
50,
thesis
60
needs to be
bucks on
packed
Amazon
tighter than a
-ish.
Christmas haggis. Now, let me give you a formula
least
for
when I
doing
bought
this, and
it.
I'll show you an example of a thesis that earns the point.
And
Here's
the
the
blue one
form.
was like
Despite
14
counter-argument,
bucks.
because evidence
it's a
1
budget
and
blue one,
evidence
but it
2,
gets the job done
my
'cause
argument.
it's
Now,
a-
the reason there's a
the
placeholder for a
Solarcast is
counter-argument is
plug-
because it'll
plug and
set you up
play, so.
nicely for the complexity point later on. Now, let me give you an example of a thesis in this format that would earn the point. Here's the prompt from the 2019 AP World History DBQ. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian
I remember
Ocean
doing
in the
this one.
16th century. Now, here's the thesis that would earn the point. Despite the argument that the
was
arrival of the
bad, though.
Portuguese was a fundamental change in Indian Ocean maritime trade in the 16th century, there's my counter-argument, because the Portuguese never extended their political control beyond a few ports, that's my first piece of evidence, and had to compete with Indian Ocean merchants in regional states such as the Ottoman Empire, there's evidence number 2, their arrival made a modest change at best, and there's my argument. So notice how that establishes a line of
Well, you're gonna need I actually didn't actually I don't remember much about the Portuguese transforming maritime trade in the 16th century, so that's 1500 to 1599 or 16, the end of 1600s. And despite their argument, the arrival of Portuguese was a fundamental change. So although some will say this, because of this, they're in your argument. The thing about this is that if it says develop an argument, I think this would be spot on. However, since it says evaluate to the extent, I think it's better if you list off the things. So you can say something like, so you can add a counter argument. Although the arrival of the Portuguese greatly changed the Indian Ocean maritime trade activity in the 16th century, the Portuguese never extended their political control beyond a few ports and had to compete with Indian Ocean merchants in regional states such as the Ottoman Empire. The argument at the bottom, I don't think it's necessary because it says evaluate to extent, not develop an argument.
Reasoning, and it is very specific. That thesis earns the point. Okay, moving down the rubric, the second point is for contextualization, and for this you can earn between 0 and 1 point. Contextualization is
also
to situate
easy.
your argument.
You just need to know the time period, which should be given to you, and then just contextualize a very broad event to it, like World War II or the conquest of the Mongols, and so on and so forth.
The larger historical context, and the rubric tells you that you can explain the historical context before, during, or after the period of the prompt. Now here's where I tell you that I've never scored an essay that is successfully contextualized during or after the prompt. Like, it's possible and is available to you if you want to do it, but by far the most intuitive way to earn this point is by explaining the events that occurred before the time period that you were given. Now, how far before the time period should you go? Let's go back to that Portuguese trading prompt. Now, technically speaking, the Neolithic Revolution could be linked by causation to Portuguese trading. After all, the Portuguese state and its ability to trade on the sea would never have arisen if people hadn't learned to farm 10,000 years before. But that's not the kind of context we're talking about. Look at the immediate context and go from there. In US history and European history, a good guideline is about 50 to 100 years before the timeline of your prompt. For world history, maybe 100 to 200 years depending on the prompt. So in the Portuguese trading example, in order to properly contextualize, we need to know about the Indian Ocean trade before the Portuguese showed up. Also, it would be relevant to talk about specific maritime technology that enabled the Portuguese to enter the Indian Ocean trade. Now, notice that I said the word relevant. Your contextualization needs to relate to the prompt. So, technically speaking, the Crusades happened before the entry of the Portuguese into the Indian Ocean trade, but it's not really relevant. So my advice is to name 2 to 3 specific vocabulary words that occurred before the time period of the prompt, and then use 2 to 3 sentences defining those words and showing how they set the stage for your argument. And that second part is crucial. You have to draw the connection between your context and your argument. Okay, now let's get to the next part of the rubric, the evidence section. As I mentioned, you're going to have 7 documents to work with, and I'm going to give you the point breakdown first and then show you how to earn them. In this section, you can earn a total of 3 points. 1 point is awarded for successfully describing the contents of 3 of the documents in relation to the prompt. 2 points are awarded for supporting your argument with at least 6 documents. Now, as a little side note here, I recommend that you use all 7 documents because if you get an interpretation wrong, then you can still get all the points. Okay, so that's 2 points in the evidence section. You can earn the evidence related to your prompt, but which is not mentioned in the document. This is called evidence beyond the documents. And if you do that successfully, 1 point. Okay, I admit that was a lot, but let me just try to explain it a little, and let's start with your handling of the documents. Let me just say it out of the gate. Don't quote from the documents. The people reading and scoring your essay know these documents backwards and forwards, so don't waste your your time quoting from them because it will earn you nothing and will waste your time. Now, I said there was a difference in points based on whether you described the documents or argued with them. And this difference is not easy for a lot of students to grasp. So let me just try to give you an example outside of DBQ. Suppose you wake up with a fever one day and your parents say you have to stay home from school and go to the doctor. And then further suppose that you have a major test that day. So you go to the doctor and you miss your test. And when you pull up your grades later that afternoon, you see that the teacher has entered a 0 for that test grade. And now you're very much failing that class. So the next day you go back to school and you have an argument to make. I should be able to take that exam and replace the 0 in the gradebook. And your teacher has no idea why you were gone, and so they would probably say no. So now you have to go one step further. You have to hand your teacher the note from the doctor and you say, look, it says here that I was at the doctor getting tested for the flu and that it was positive. Okay, at that point, all you've done is made an argument, I should be able to take the test, and you've put your evidence in their hands. And at this point, maybe your teacher remains unconvinced because the argument and the evidence are not yet connected. So let's go one step further. At this point, you need to connect your argument with your evidence. So you're going to say something like this: because I was sick and contagious, and proof of that is right here in this document, it would not have been socially responsible for me to show up and take that exam. Therefore, you should allow me to retake it. Okay, now that is a coherent argument supported by evidence. So to me, the key to getting this point comes down to two things. First is the grouping of the documents, which I already talked about. Second is topic sentences for your body paragraph. So suppose I've grouped documents 1, 3, and 5 as, say, economic documents. In order to use those in support of an argument, I'd start my paragraph by writing a topic sentence that explained why economics was the cause of such and such. And then within the paragraph, I'd use my documents to demonstrate why that is true. Okay, the next part of the evidence section is the 1 point for evidence beyond the documents. To earn this point, you need to connect a specific piece of evidence to the argument of your prompt. Also, it cannot be something that's in the documents themselves. This requires you to name it and explain what it was, and then connect it back to your argument. 3 things: name it, explain it, and connect it. People tend to lose this point because they can usually name a piece of evidence, but they forget to explain it and connect it. And there's no specific place that you need to do this, just stick it in wherever it's relevant. Now, with respect to evidence beyond the documents, there is not a specific time period given to you on the rubric. For example, it doesn't say that your evidence beyond the documents has to come from within the same time period as the prompt. It can come before or after. However, usually when you're using evidence to support an argument, it'll probably come from roughly the same time period you're writing about. AP US readers are far more strict about this than AP World or AP Euro readers, just so you know. The safest thing to do with evidence beyond the documents is just use evidence from within the same time period you're writing about. And the last section of the rubric is for analysis and reasoning. And for this section, you can earn up to 2 points. The first section is about sourcing documents, and you can earn 1 point there. Now, this is one of the harder things for most students to do, so let me try to explain. To source a document means to show how that document's historical situation, audience, purpose, or point of view is relevant to the interpretation of the document. To source for historical situation means that you place the document in its larger historical context. So if your document is Lincoln's second inaugural address, then it might be important to know its historical situation, which is to say it was given in the midst of the American Civil War. To source for audience, you need to demonstrate why it's important for us to know to whom this was written. For example, a personal letter might say something much different about a person than a political stump speech, and the difference comes down to audience. To source for purpose, you need to explain what a document was intended to do. Not what it says, but what it did. If you have a nationalistic speech from a leader of a colonized nation, then you need to tell us what that speech actually accomplished. Did the people rise up and demand independence because of this? Etc., etc. To source for point of view, you need to answer the question, why does...
Because it was not safe for him to just go out because he could infect people. It's not safe to take the... I should take the retake for the exam or whatever it was. I don't know.
He or she say what he or she says in the way that he or she says. And the special sauce of point of view analysis comes from the end of that question, in the way that he or she says. Now, you only have to perform one of those sourcing skills for each document that you try to source. So, for example, if you're going to source document 2, you don't have to go through all 4 of those sourcing skills on document 2. Just choose the one that makes the most sense for that document. If you successfully source 3 documents, you get 1 point. And the final part of this section of the rubric is the most difficult to achieve, and it's the complexity point. And for this, you can earn up to 1 point. Now, let me just tell you, only 2% of all students who write DBQs earn this point. It is very rare. At the end of the day, here's what this point is about. Is your essay nuanced? Does it analyze multiple variables?
I still don't know what nuanced means. If you look it up. A subtitle of subtle difference in shade or meaning. Give nuances to. What? What is nuanced speech? Nuance is a noun according to the dictionary, a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. So like a touch in meaning. So like adding on or something, I don't know. It's weird.
Does it explain the complexity of the topic at hand with skill and beauty? If so, you'll earn this point. So if you're writing an essay about changes over time, then maybe also include the continuity. If you're comparing things and talking about their similarities, then maybe also talk about their differences. Remember, we've already set ourselves up for a counter-argument in the thesis. If we can weave together that counter-argument through the whole essay and show how the relevant evidence supports it, but might not be the best reading of the evidence, well, then you might be on your way to earning this point. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is one of the most difficult essays that any student in any of the time, then maybe also at hand with skill and beauty. If so, you'll earn this point. So if you're writing an essay about changes over time, then maybe also include the continuity. If you're comparing things and talking about their similarities, then
unlike the LEQ, the DBQ's complexity includes using causation and continuities and changes and whatnot. But the LEQ complexity is a bit different. So yeah, I think DBQ in this sense it's a bit easier.
And maybe also talk about their differences. Remember, we've already set ourselves up for a counter-argument in the thesis. If we can weave together that counter-argument through the whole essay and show how the relevant evidence supports it, but might not be the best reading of the evidence, well, then you might be on your way to earning this point. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is one of the most difficult essays that any student in any of the AP histories will do. And if you are totally overwhelmed by this, the only way to improve on it is to continue practicing over and over and over again. If you do that, baby, you go into 7-town. All right, if you want to get your hands on that AP essay cram course I mentioned.
All right. So, okay, last thing I wanted to do. Oh, oopsie. And okay, so last thing I wanted to do was a because it was my MCQ and I did some of that. I'm having a brain fart. What is it called again? I'm having some of that test corrections, so let me just set the thing up. So yeah, here it is. I think I'll just get out of that. Alright, so ignore all this. It'll help, but I wrote more and I just decided not to scan it. So here's one of them. Europe, or Europe number 4, because we're not allowed to have because they're allowed to have it in the AP teacher's disposal, but not allowed being a public for copyright reasons, obviously. So for European labor systems before 1450 differed from the Chinese labor system, as the Europeans were more likely to utilize serfdom. So that's the answer. What I wrote was both systems relied on plantation crops very much. So I think it was asking how did European labor systems before 1450 differ from the Chinese labor system, also in the same time period. So the Europeans were more on serfdom because in this time period was a feudalistic Europe. So in China, they wouldn't utilize serfdom. They both relied on plantation crops, which I got wrong. Number 5, the sailors' knowledge of monsoon winds represented a continuity in maritime trade routes between Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and India. So what I wrote was knowledge of longitude was after the time period. So the thing about this time period, it was talking about 1750. So what I don't like is that they like to make these time periods very, very big and broad. So it's a bit more difficult. You know, you gotta do what you gotta do, then you do it. So yeah, the knowledge of longitude shortly came, and then shortly after the longitude came the steamships. So before then, the knowledge of monsoon winds was still very prominent. Number 6, maritime trade connection in East Africa 1250 to 1450 provided the setting for the spread of Islam. Okay, this one I guess I put something about the compass because like compass was demonstrated around Europe and Asia, not East Africa. Okay, that's just bad. That's just my bad. Number 12, the image, I think it was okay. I'll describe. The image best conveys that Aurangzeb was a Sunni Muslim capturing the fortress of Golconda, which were Shiites. Photo does not show taxation. Okay, it said something about the emperor taxing non-Muslims or something. Anyway. Photo doesn't show taxation. Conquering fortress is a better answer choice. Number 13. The interpretations of economic history of the early modern period were different in terms of the importance of Europe in the global economy. Okay. So Europe's importance in the global economy. So not much mention on developments in the text, more on taking a stance. Wait, what does that mean again? Their interpretations of economic history on the early modern period were different in terms of, I think what I put was something about, I can't remember. Oh, I realized my face cam was kind of blocking, so my bad. So yeah, both this is around plantation crops very much. So this one not much on developments in the text. So I think like developments, like Europe's position in developing innovations towards commercial practices and economy. So it's more about like taking a stance. The passage was taking a stance that that Europe was important in terms of the global economy. Number 15. The trade networks on global economy were influenced by the European demand for luxury goods. Oh, I think this was one of the distractors, because it said something about precious metals, which is what the Europeans did want. However, they also wanted other goods such as silk and other stuff, so they wanted demand for not just silver but other luxury goods. So yeah. Number 21. Based off the arguments, the rights-based movement was about ethnicity, class, and religion influence. Based off the arguments, the rights-based movements about ethnicity, class, and religion influenced the author's ideas. Socialist movements, not in a time frame. Oh my god. Socialist movements. You guys know where socialism is? 1900s. This is like 1500s, I think. More prominent in the third paragraph. Okay, I don't know. Number 2. The Safavid Persian trading practices were similar to other Islamic empires in the 17th century. So that's 1600 to 1699. In that multiple ethnic and religious groups participated in inter-regional trade. The Muslims were always open to trade. They were not restricted, I think. They were only restrictive towards European innovative developments, such as the printing press, which soon after they slowly adapted to it. But they were always open to trade, so that's what I think it was. The Safavid exchanges with European trading post-empires in Asia most directly contributed to the geographic expansion of the Safavid trade from 1450 to 1750. The spread of Islam was contributable. Okay, this is one of those most directly. This does directly contribute, but this one most directly contributes. The spread of Islam was contributable, while trading post exchanges was more contributable. Making money is because they're trying to geographically expand. So what I wrote was the Sufi missionaries, Islamic Sufi are Islamic missionaries. The Sufis trying to spread Islam contribute to geographic expansion. It did somewhat, but making money was more prominent, so trading. 25. European industrialization contributed most to a change in Safavid production and export problems after 1750. Safavid, I'm not gonna remember that. If I'm MCQ, if it's on there, I'm screwed. Liberalization by Europe should not change production and export. Yeah. The industrialization should have, because after that the economy just went boom. So yeah. 32. Great Britain's, oh my god, not this one. Great Britain's location in the Atlantic Ocean and its many waterways best illustrates Britain's increasing prominence as a global power in the 19th century. Although Britain's access to resources from colonies helped, Britain's waterways was even better. So it was a picture. In my defense, the picture was so bad you can't even see any canals and waterways. So I used I answered how the British access to resources from raw materials from its resources. It did help in economy, Great Britain's economy, but Great Britain's location in the Atlantic Ocean made it very trade, or it made it very susceptible to trade. I don't know. It gave him a good position in trade, and it had many waterways too. And Great Britain's navy was pretty good, so they had the upper hand as a global power in the 19th century. So they were already a bit into industrialization, and they were the world's top industrialist nation back then. Right now I think it's the US, I'm not sure. The Brazilian newspapers about how slave conditions were mild and pleasant creates a sense of sarcasm to highlight weaknesses in pro-slavery arguments in 1883. It does use newspapers to corroborate the newspaper's position. Corroborate. To confirm or give support. Yeah. Remember, corroborating also is a part of complexity in both the DBQ and LEQ. So, it does use newspapers to confirm the newspaper's position against slave conditions, but the use of sarcasm was better. But again, one of those distracting ones. It's very tricky. I had to keep watch of it. You guys also need to keep watch of it. Hello. It looks like someone else joined. Where was I? Number 36. The provisions of the 1824 Brazilian Constitution proves how the government of Brazil adopted Enlightenment political principles. I need to study up on Enlightenment. Yeah. Portugal laws did not really have reached Brazil as colonies established states. Yeah, I'm screwed if they have something like that. 40. The imperial expansion into Asian states by Japan challenges the argument of how Japan should lead Asia against European influence. Okay, I understand. Meiji Japan's industrial success somewhat supports the argument, not challenge it. Because it says the imperial expansion into Asian states by Japan challenges the argument of how Japan should lead Asia against European influence. So the article was talking about how Japan should unite all the Asian countries, well, also India, I don't know, and they should Japan should lead as an industrialist power now against European influence, because they've been colonizing spheres of influence and whatnot. So yeah. Meiji Japan's industrialized success, it doesn't really support. Supports the argument that it supports the argument that Japan should lead because they're in growing, but the imperial expansion into Asian states by Japan challenges it, because it's saying that instead of Japan leading the Asian states against the Europeans, Japan's just taking over the Asian states. 41. The common possessions of India, Japan, and Thailand was Thailand? I don't know. Hold on a second. The common possessions of India, Japan, and Thailand was shared Buddhist influences. Japan, not really. Okay, I guess Japan was then colonized for the British. Okay, I said that they all experienced some form of European influence or European colonization. So yeah, Japan was never colonized by the British. So they didn't really experience British colonization. They did experience European industrialization influence via the Meiji Restoration. Alright, last war, the Spanish Latin American colony struggles for independence in the 19th century gave rise to arguments for regional unity, similar to the struggles of Thailand and India. Because I chose something about Russia and China's struggle to have control of Central Asia. Their struggle doesn't correlate with the struggle for independence. So yeah. 48. The pattern of nuclear weapon possession after 1985 is best explained by the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. After 1985, the collapse of the Soviets is far more prominent than the development of international economic unions. Okay, I select something about international economic unions. 48. The pattern in nuclear weapon possession after 1985. Oh. I mean, oh my god, gaming Ben. Uh-oh. I could stream on Twitch if you want. Wait, you're one of the people who voted for me to stay on YouTube and stream there. How does that work out? Surrender soul. Alright, anyway. The primary technology and production of nuclear weapons contribute most directly to advances in energy production. Oh my god. I didn't answer this question. This one was so obviously easy. It won't correlate with computer and internet technology, antibiotic and medicines. It's so easy. This one is just... I just didn't answer it. 55, last up, because I need to go sleep soon. The provisions of the husband and wife love and respect of one another and free choice support the claim that women were part of the labor force, and that the CCP government tried to implement in its economic policies. So these are articles from Marriage Laws by Mao Zedong. And women were not elected to political roles. Chinese social system still all men, but emphasis on labor workforce for a better society. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah. That's all I have to show you. I reviewed with every single one of the, I think, of the stuff, so I think, so yeah. I reviewed every single part of the thing. Anyway, so yeah, if your history test is tomorrow, it's currently in my where I live, 10:07. I meant to sleep at 9:30, but you know, stream didn't start for a while, so yeah. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Some people dropped by, and yeah. Well, I hope that everyone will do very well in the test, and just You heard Mr. Heimler, or I don't know what to call him. Heimler's history dude. You heard him. Just don't panic, stay cool, and you will do fine on a test. So I wish everyone the best of luck. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah. See you guys next time. Bye bye. I might, you know, even though I won't be streaming any more AP World History, I could stream just whatever. I can't really stream games, my computer can't really do that, but I can just do it just chatting and just have people chat with me, so yeah. So, that's pretty much it. So, until later, or until next time, bye bye. bye.